So our first order of business is to present a Lifetime Achievement Award to my dear friend, Marvin Marcus. I think for most of the people in this room, the name Marvin Marcus and the words housing banker are synonymous. Of course, he is much more than that. He is one of Wall Street's most accomplished and successful broad-based municipal finance bankers. His most recent career accomplishments have been at Goldman Sachs, where he's a managing director, but prior to that, he was at Kidder Peabody. Before his long Wall Street career, he worked at HPD, where he was the Deputy Commissioner for Policy and Intergovernmental Affairs, and at HPD's predecessor agency, HDA. In 2002, he chaired the Rent Guidelines Board for Mayor Bloomberg. Before that, he chaired it for Mayor Koch from 1979 to 1984. He is a graduate of Brooklyn College and NYU's Wagner School. As many of you know, his relationship with CHPC began in 1969 when he began as an intern. He served as the chair of this organization for a very long time and continues today as a member of our executive committee. We honor him today not only for his long career as one of the leaders of our industry, but because of the great debt of gratitude that we as an organization owe him for his work on our behalf. I know that many of you join me in saluting Marvin, the man that I personally call Marvelous, because he has been a mentor to so many in this room. Finally, we want to add that Marvin especially loved his time as chair of the Rent Guidelines Board. During Marvin's tenure there, he worked hard to bring compassion, civility, and moderation to the civic debate about the complex questions of rent regulation here in our city. We know that he has a serious void to his core now that he has stepped down. We are honored to present him with this Lifetime Achievement Award from the board of CHPC, and we ask you now that you all use your whistles to thank Marvin and to make him feel at home here today. Ladies and gentlemen, Marvelous. There's one here? Oh, there's one here.
I do feel at home. I generally don't write my remarks, but I've written them this time, so I can't blame spontaneity for anything I say. Thanks, Richard, for your almost gracious introduction. Given my sometimes irreverent and colorful vocabulary, I thought they would actually show a headline from the Daily News after I lost it at one of the Rent Guideline Board meetings. I always cringe when people are about to discuss things I purportedly said or did. This introduction was not too bad. I would have found much more damaging things to say about myself if I was doing the introduction, and of course, I would have been much more amusing. I am thrilled to be receiving this Special Service Award from CHPC. As Richard indicated, I started my career some 45 years ago at CHPC. Given that length of time of service, my first observation in my remarks, it took you long enough for you guys to recognize my value. When Richard called to inform me about the award, even though in your program it's called something else, he did call it a Lifetime Achievement Award, which always makes me nervous, like someday somebody's just going to roll out a pine box and say, that's your Lifetime Achievement Award. I would like to take a moment to recognize all the other well-deserved honorees. BRP Development, TD Bank, represented by my old friend Matt Schatz, Laura Walker, and Ismani Speliotis. Before moving on, I want to indicate in a public forum my congratulations to Mayor de Blasio for choosing a true leader in the community development field as his deputy mayor for housing and economic development. As you are all aware, Alicia is our keynote speaker, Alicia Glenn. I'm proud to say that I've had the pleasure of working with Alicia in the same firm for the last decade, and believe that she will utilize the lessons learned in her previous job to maximize effect in her endeavor. To be clear, however, whatever decisions Alicia makes that you agree with, my mentoring deserves the credit. When you disagree, it is her progressive self. In addition, I take note of Laura Jervis receiving the Roger Starr Public Service Award. Roger was the executive director of CHPC when I joined. He, along with Marion Samuth, who served as his deputy, were the first of many bosses/mentors in my career. Roger had a brilliant mind and was a very gifted writer. Roger was appointed administrator of the Housing and Development Administration by the newly elected Mayor A. Beam in 1974 when I went with him as an assistant. During my tenure at HDA, the organization changed considerably, including the name it took for itself, the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, or HPD. On the way to becoming HPD, there were several momentous decisions to be made. 3 people got to make that decision: myself, Tom Appleby, the then HDA administrator, and Sandy Lehrer, general counsel, and in the audience today. Once we had settled on housing preservation and development, came the debate over to comma or not to comma. Should it be housing, comma, preservation and development, or housing preservation and development? Were we the stewards of housing and preservation and development, or just housing preservation and development? We went commando, no comma. The next question was, would the New York City Housing Agency be confused with the Honolulu, Hawaii Police Department, which also went by the initials HPD? Why such confusion? Why would such confusion possibly occur, you might ask? Isn't there 4,900 miles between the two places? Not in the real world of 1976. The magic of pre-cable, pre-internet television's limited entertainment choices made this distance closer than you might think. The most popular program on television in 1976 was Hawaii Five-0, and constant discussion of the exploits of HPD. Once again, we made the bold decision: stick with HPD. While the comma can still be debated, HPD outlasted Hawaii Five-0, now back with much less of a television market share. One final postscript after the decision was made. I received a letter about 2 weeks after the change in name, addressed to Marvin Marcus, Deputy Commissioner, Department of Housing Prevention and Development. As a wrap-up, I wanted to leave you with 2 thoughts. First, most of you in the audience have spent, or will spend, most of your professional lives trying to improve the housing and neighborhoods of New York City, as I did, and as many HPD commissioners did, including Nat Leventhal, Tony Glideman, Felice Bichetti, Richard Roberts, and Geraldine, our own 2 stalwarts, Sean Donovan, Rafael Sisteros, Matt Wambua, Ruth Ann Wisnauskas, and now Vicky Bean does. Ironically, these stellar leaders of HPD and those of you working to improve neighborhoods may be more criticized for your successes than your failures. Little did we know back in 1976 when HPD was putting decals depicting windows and flower boxes onto abandoned buildings to create the illusion of people living in these buildings, that our collective efforts would result in significant neighborhood renaissance throughout the city. Hard work, perseverance, creativity, and significant financial commitment made the difference. Yet today, these efforts seem to be criticized as an intentional effort to gentrify neighborhoods. Government efforts can result in improvements, but once such improvement is catalyzed, a word that the Bloomberg administration came up with that I hate but now use, exact calibration so that neighborhoods are desirable but not too desirable is near impossible. Do your best, and may the chips fall where they may. Finally, a plug for CHPC. Get involved, support CHPC with your time and money. You won't regret it, and it will enrich your professional and personal development. Thank you, CHPC, for this great and, of course, well-deserved honor. Thank you.